in. That said, the position is a bit more complicated than I think it was when we talked last time. There is an uptick in the number of diagnoses being made. Whether it's helpful to call that a third wave with all the emotional baggage that that particular term carries, I'm not so sure. And that uptick in diagnosis so far hasn't been accompanied by undue pressure on our hospitals, though our hospitals are always in a precarious state, nor has it been accompanied by an increase in deaths, which remain below what would have been expected in England, I think, since the beginning of March, and in Wales since the beginning of February. So there's that. And then again, there's this whole vexed question of the Delta variant. Now, I, as you know, have always been skeptical about politicians invoking variants. It's always seemed to me that if you can't blame the public, it's quite good to blame the virus for changing its jacket. And there's some quite good news, actually, about the Delta variant. It appears that the vaccine does protect against it pretty effectively. It appears it's only a 10th to a 20th as lethal as the Alpha variant, the Kent variant, as we used to call it.
As lethal or as transmissible?
Lethal. I can't transmissible. I've carefully left that till last.
Okay.
And it seems that the symptoms that you get too are much more like the common cold symptoms for most of us that we used to always associate with coronaviruses before SARS. The treatments are largely the same for both, but you remember, or you may not, my little acronym TILT. Well, I've started at the wrong end, so I'm now putting T for transmissibility at the other end. You hear this figure of 60% transmissibility bandied about a lot. And I've always, again, been very skeptical about that, wondering how much we were simply measuring how much it was transmitted and how much this was reflecting human behavior. I still am quite skeptical.
And that was because the Indian variant was brought in by families who were largely living in multi-occupancy homes in an area where there was very low vaccine take-up.
Now, all right, that's all very well. And all credit to Public Health England for once. They have actually looked at this question in some detail, and it does appear that household transmission of the India variant is about 11% compared with other variants of about 8%. It's not much. The significance probably isn't that large, and it's probably a more helpful way of thinking about it than the 60%. But I do understand why that might give some cause for concern. Now then, what does this all mean? What's the explanation? Well, my explanation is that what we're seeing here is a more transmissible, less lethal virus, which is starting to evolve towards the sort of coronaviruses that we've always known. Hasn't got there yet, but in some respects you could see this as quite positive. In as much as the virus spreads but doesn't cause serious illness, actually that's more immune people in the pot. Yes. So that's all very good. What do we do about this? Well, there's a couple of things where